Throw down on a hop, first major league stolen base for Carlos Correa.
In today's video, I'm going to show you the reason why Carlos Correa has completely abandoned his running game, how this issue is at the heart of his ongoing free agency saga, and why everyone involved should be very concerned. As always, before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button, as that kind of support really helps us grow the channel. Almost 3 weeks after agreeing to a deal with the New York Mets, Carlos Correa remains unsigned, and now reports suggest that his deal with the Mets might be close to dead. On December 21st, the Mets and Correa agreed to a 12-year, $315 million contract, with Correa moving from shortstop to third base pending a physical. That physical later revealed long-term concerns about a previous ankle injury, and the two sides have been unable to agree on terms since. We learned just over a week ago that Correa's camp made it clear he doesn't want any changes to the years or guaranteed money already agreed to. But according to Andy Martino of SNY, the Mets are running out of patience with the Correa situation and are prepared to walk away. Lawyers for both sides have been unable to agree on contract language that would protect the Mets from risks associated with that injury. According to a source of Martino's with direct knowledge of the Mets' thinking, the Mets have become very frustrated with the Carlos Correa negotiations and are now considering walking away from the deal altogether. Based on what the Mets source is saying, the team is seriously questioning whether it wants to proceed, especially after another news report from John Heyman that Correa's camp is now listening to offers from other teams. Heyman says that Correa and his agent Scott Boras had engaged with at least one other team as recently as this past Thursday, and that the Minnesota Twins had been in touch with Correa's camp in recent weeks. According to Jim Bowden of The Athletic, the Minnesota Twins are suddenly now back in the mix for Correa, and he says there's reason to believe that Correa may in fact return to Minnesota.
I'll tell you what I'm hearing this morning is the Twins have some momentum here with the possibility of surprising us all once again. Yeah, they are still involved in Correa. They've got a shot here, and I think they're willing to do a little bit more of a risk on the medicals than either the Giants or the Mets were in terms of years and dollars from what I'm hearing.
As Bowden explains, Correa's agent Scott Boras is known for getting his clients the best deals in the sport, and if the agreement with the Mets should fall apart, we should expect Boras to have other deals lined up.
Look, the one thing we all know about the Boras Corporation, right? They do a really good job for their clients. And if their clients allow the Boras Corporation to do what they do, they will get the most years and the most dollars they possibly can for the player. And there is a possibility here that the Minnesota Twins come in and just go pick out Correa right under the New York Mets' noses.
Despite the recent smoke that the Mets may walk away from this deal, and it's not confirmed that they are considering that because there is often a lot of positioning for leverage during any negotiations, the general consensus is still that Correa will eventually sign a deal with the Mets. But the story has taken another twist. One thing being overlooked in this saga is how quickly Boras and Correa moved on from their deal with the San Francisco Giants and why. Once the Giants told Boras their concerns about Correa's physical and requested some time to consider their options, Boras reportedly worked the phones immediately with other teams, rushing to complete a deal with the Mets in less than 12 hours, reaching agreement in the middle of the night. Why was Scott Boras so determined to complete a deal only hours after receiving bad news from the Giants? After all, if Correa has no outstanding medical issue, as Boras contends, then there should have been no need to panic like this. That is, unless they anticipated more bad news was on the way and they hoped to get ahead of it. Let's not forget, Boras and Correa couldn't run away from the Giants situation fast enough, yet it was by far the biggest contract ever offered to Correa. Ironically, instead of negotiating with the Giants, who had offered Correa 13 years and $350 million, Correa and Boras instead took less money and fewer years from the Mets. $35 million less, and 1 year fewer than the Mets had offered. It's now been almost 3 weeks since Correa agreed to a deal with the Mets, and they still haven't made the deal official because they can't agree on terms related to Correa's physical. In hindsight, with this saga now approaching its 3rd week, it's very odd that Correa abandoned his deal with the Giants so abruptly and walked away from a deal which would have made him the highest paid shortstop, something that Correa is known to have wanted, only to fight with the Mets for almost 3 weeks over the same issue but for less money and 1 fewer year. One would think that the Giants would have had similar negotiations with Correa as the Mets have had. So why are the Giants no longer involved in the bidding for Correa? According to the Giants president of baseball operations, Farhan Zaidi, if Correa does become available again this offseason, the chances of a deal with San Francisco are slim to none. Zaidi's comment alone should raise some flags. The Giants have said they're no longer interested only 4 weeks after reaching a 13-year agreement with Correa. And the Giants saying they're no longer interested in Correa also gives us some insight into why Correa is still not close to a deal and how serious the concerns are about his ankle. Let's review. His last team was front and center all offseason and all last season, saying that they were serious about re-signing Correa to a long-term deal, and they then offered 10 years, $285 million. The Twins had engaged in discussions with Correa early on and made several offers. It appears that Correa never took their offers seriously and instead possibly wanted to only use the Twins as leverage to make other teams feel more pressure, and it appears to have worked to Correa's advantage, with the Giants and Mets both offering more years and money than the Twins. Meanwhile, the first team to reach an agreement with Correa this offseason saw his physicals and now wants nothing to do with him, and the second team to reach an agreement with Correa saw his physicals and still hasn't reached a deal after almost 3 weeks. If the Minnesota Twins were to make another long-term offer to Correa with no conditions about his ankle, one would have to assume that Correa might consider the Twins more seriously. If Correa genuinely believes that there's nothing to be concerned about with his ankle, then he's going to pursue the biggest contract. Right now, that's with the Mets. The issue holding up the deal with the Mets is the status of Correa's right ankle, and now there's reason to believe that Correa may never attempt another stolen base for the remainder of his career. Let's examine why that is and how we got here. In June of 2014, Correa was a 19-year-old prospect with the Astros. Correa suffered a serious right leg injury sliding into third base, had to be carried off the field, required surgery to fix a broken fibula, and missed the remainder of the season. He was only 19 years old, and the surgery left Correa with a plate on his fibula, with screws attaching it to his bone. The injury was bad enough that when he returned, he wore an ankle guard for a while. On September 20th, 2022, Correa attempted to steal second base in a meaningless game against the Kansas City Royals. While sliding into second, his right ankle collided with second baseman Michael Massey. Immediately upon contact, Correa reached for his ankle, then fell on his back in pain while grabbing his right ankle and feeling for something. Was he checking on the metal plate attached to his ankle? After the game, according to Dan Hayes of The Athletic, Correa said that Massey had hit the plate on his surgically repaired ankle and that instantly it went numb and there was some vibrating. Correa also claimed that he was immediately fine, but let's not forget that he was also less than 2 weeks away from the end of the season, after which point he had planned to opt out of his contract with the Twins and become a free agent. So really, what else would anyone expect him to say at that point? Worth noting, this September 20th incident was Carlos Correa's only stolen base attempt in the last 3 seasons. Over the last 6 years, he has only made 6 attempts total, whereas in his first 2 seasons, he had 27 stolen bases in 34 attempts. But there's more. When he was first drafted by the Houston Astros in 2012, Baseball America graded his speed above average. He had 54 stolen bases in 282 minor league games, which would be the same as 31 stolen bases over a 162-game season. In this day and age, that's pretty good. Correa had speed, and he was eager to use it. After 2016, Correa essentially stopped running, and here's why. In 2016, he missed time with a left ankle injury after twisting his ankle while running out a base hit against the Texas Rangers. He was hurt badly enough that he immediately went down to the ground, stayed there for a while, and eventually had to be helped off the field. In 2017, he also left a game against the Atlanta Braves when his left ankle collided with catcher Tyler Flowers' shin guard during a headfirst slide into home. Then during the 2020 season in September, Correa missed 2 games due to a left ankle injury after fouling a ball off his ankle. It was bad enough that he had to be helped off the field by Josh Reddick and an Astros trainer. X-rays were negative and he was diagnosed with a bone bruise. Without strong ankles, Correa doesn't have a running game, and this isn't something that we have to wonder about. We've already seen it play out in front of us for the past 6 years. His lack of a speed game doesn't impact Correa's value. The slew of ankle injuries causing him to give up his otherwise above-average running game, combined with his 2014 ankle surgery and his September 2022 stolen base attempt, all of it adds up to a very big concern. After that incident, Correa himself had told reporters that his ankle went numb and that there was some vibrating after the collision on that stolen base attempt. With that incident, if something happened to his plate, the ankle, or both, teams would stand to have very good reason for concern about how long that right ankle can hold up, especially if ankle injuries are the reason that he no longer runs at all. Either way, teams are still interested, and the Mets continue to negotiate with Correa. So with all the drama that's been going on, what's happening here? We have a report that the Mets are considering walking away, and another report that says that Correa is now listening to other teams. Is this just another case of Boras using the Twins as leverage to pressure the Mets into finalizing a deal for Correa? Or are the Mets and Correa so far apart right now that the Twins actually have a window at re-signing him? It's likely just a case of Boras running out of options and trying to pressure the Mets into signing the deal with terms that favor Correa and Boras. Either way, a resolution to to this saga is expected soon. If and when Carlos Correa signs with the team, we'll be here to talk about what conditions are introduced into the contract and what it all means. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of our other videos. And check out this other video that's on the screen right after this. Thanks for watching, and until next time, go Twins!